Welcome back to Pop Culture Theory. I am Saccora, and I am here tonight with a very special topic that I want to cover with all of you, and that is TCG or CCG games, trading card or collectible card games, and the collectible market. And I want to do a little bit of a market watch video for these games, and I will say this is also a bit of a direct response video to Rudy with Alpha Investments and his most recent video on Force of Will. And I was looking for a place to put some of the stuff I'd learned about Force of Will at GAMA anyways, and this is the best place for it. I'm going to cover a couple of the things I learned at GAMA, and in general, I want to talk to you guys about the way the collectible card game market is going. So as you see here, I've got a handful of collectible cards on screen. All of these are for different games, and I'm going to show you some different traits about these cards. All these ones are pretty much meaningless, but I want to go over a couple. In this, let's see, we have 7 games here. I'll go through them in case you aren't familiar. This is brand new Munchkin. I just wanted to highlight it because I really do like this game. We got Magic, of course. We got Force of Will. We got Pokemon. That is Final Fantasy there, Yu-Gi-Oh, and DBS. That's not including any of the Bushiroad product, which we have Luck and Logic. We have Cardfight Vanguard, which is getting a brand new version of it. And we also have Wyshores, or Vysor. You also have other collectible card games that I'm not including here. Lots that have started and not done so well recently. Things like Zombie, New World Order is an example. Or there was a Street Fighter card game that was here for a hot second and a half. There are so many collectible card games in the market right now that it is a little disconcerting. You see so many people buying into card games of different types, and Rudy mentioned in his video that it feels like collecting in the 90s. And any of you guys who aren't familiar with collecting in the 90s, let me catch you up. So let me start by saying I have been collecting and buying, trading, selling, all those aspects for over 20 years in collectibles. For the last 6 years, I have professionally been making my living doing this, working with local game stores, selling stuff on my own, all those kind of things. I've seen this from every end and with all sorts of collectibles. Comic books, cards, sports cards, coins, all of these things I've worked with. And let me tell you, first, I've already ranted in some of my other videos about people complaining about things like Masters 25 and that you can hit a dollar card. They don't even understand how sports cards works. And I've ranted about that in other videos. I'm not going to go into that now. But let's talk about the 90s for a moment. I wish I had a copy with me. God knows I own at least 3 copies of The Death of Superman and The Marriage of Superman comics. I didn't think to pull one out before making this video, but everyone has copies of those. And I still consistently see people come into stores trying to sell those books for $100 each. And they just aren't worth that. They were so massively overprinted that they're worth nothing. In fact, if you have comics from the 90s that you're letting gather dust so you can sell them off for big money one day, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but it's probably not going to happen. There's a couple of books you can watch out for, like New Mutants' first appearance of Deadpool. Those are some good ones that have some value to them. But the rest of the time, you bring in a full long box of 300 comic books from the 90s to a comic store, they will offer you $10. And that is a good offer. Take it. Get rid of the books. They might as well be fire fodder. It's a problem. They were overprinted in the 90s. Comic companies have caught up since then. The comic companies in the time since now print to order. So they only print as many comics as the distributor, Diamond Comics, orders. And that's it. But we're not here talking about comics today. We're going to talk about collectible cards and kind of what some of the lessons of the 90s are that we can take away for collectible cards. So, Rudy, in your video, you mentioned that you think there's been a slip in stuff. Let me tell you, coming back from GAMA, IVC is definitely reporting that there has been. The international correspondence came out, and here, let me show you. Here's this year. 2017, 5% growth is what they're saying. 2016, 10% growth. You can see all those other numbers. We haven't had a fall in growth since 2008. I don't believe them. That 5% growth in 2017, the guy said was a little bit of an estimate, and he was hoping to have better numbers by the end of the year. I wouldn't doubt if when we get all the numbers in from the end of the year, we see a 5% loss in the trading card market, at least from my experience. Now, I am in a large metro community in Denver, Colorado. There are at least 20 hobby stores in my metro area. At least. That's a lot of competition, and that's one of the first things, is hobby stores. This is something they covered all week at GAMA. Hobby stores are popping up left and right. You have more game stores than ever. You have people trying off things like the game bars, the game card shops that are in coffee stores, all these different things, and it's really overdoing the market right now. You see more and more people competing for the same small pool of players. So I think we might see an actual real dip by the time they get all the numbers in, or at the very least, maybe 2018, unless some of these companies pick their stuff up, we're going to see a dip. Now, this whole video is kind of in response to Rudy's video where he talked about Force of Will. Let me move some cards out of the way here. You see Force of Will right there? Yeah, Force of Will. They have announced that they are changing some stuff, and I actually can give you guys a little insight on that. I talked with, I believe it's their CEO. I've met the man before. I'm pretty sure he's their CEO. I chatted with him at GAMA. Let me start by saying they did not have a booth at GAMA this year. They did not do any presentations at GAMA this year. They were almost a non-presence. I found this guy in the hallway, and I had to talk to him to ask him questions, and he told me the same thing that they've basically made all this announcement about, that, you know, the anime we all heard about, that's out. The cards are the main focus right now. They really need to focus on making the card game good again, is what he focused on. He talked about how the game was really good in the first 5-6 sets or so, and then it died. And he wants to take it back to those first 4 or 5 sets and make the game feel like it did back then. As a player of Force of Will, I think that's genius. If they can do that, it might save their game. Their game has been on rocky water. And I was just mentioning, in my metro area here, we have a lot of stores. I believe there's one store running Force of Will. They do get good crowds because they are the only one running it, but none of the other stores, including the local gaming store I frequent, has been able to keep it up. They all died off around the same time, and that was with that, I think it was Battle for Ataraxia, is that set that everyone first got stuck with. So I personally spoke with the CEO. I'm pretty positive that's him. If it wasn't the CEO, it's one of their very high up members who goes to GAMA and these things. And he chatted with me, and he spent the whole time apologizing to me. He was going around retailer to retailer apologizing for the product and telling us to keep an eye on it, and that they are limiting print runs and they're going to do everything they can to make the game better. That is what I want to hear from a company, but Rudy's not wrong. That's the kind of shit that will scare investors. Sorry, little PG language there, but it's the kind of stuff you don't just go saying, and they weren't the only ones to say it. I don't have any Vanguard cards out here right now, but Vanguard gave me a very similar speech, that they've seen their sales decline, and that they're basically launching a Vanguard 2.0, and that they really hope it's going to bring them back into the game. You have new people like Munchkin. No, don't get me wrong, I love Munchkin. I am so excited that this is a collectible card game now, but it's a new collectible card game, and that's always a scary territory to be in. Right now, we have a lot of collectible card games in the market, and it's starting to feel like the 90s. Starting to feel like anybody can just go out and print a game or a collectible. And it's not just collectible card games. Games in general have been blowing up. The board game market, I don't know if you guys have seen all the crazy stuff there. It's really crazy. There's more board games selling than ever before. Kickstarter's pushing them. And, I mean, they're selling, but everyone wonders if there's something of a bubble going on there. I want to show you one other page from that magazine that we got from International Correspondence, kind of give you guys a little idea of some of the other stuff that we've been seeing and that we have. So I'm going to try to get this here. Just that top part's mostly what matters. Let me get the light off that. There's your hobby channel. Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, then Marvel HeroClix and DC HeroClix, followed by Star Wars Destiny, followed by D&D Miniatures. 7th down on the list is Force of Will. 2 years ago, they were 4th on the list, behind Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, and Magic. Then you have Cardfight Vanguard, another group that is trying to get back in there. And then Dragon Ball Super is broken into 9, and they only were in that final quarter. Dragon Ball Super has done a lot of really good moves. You guys can see the top 10 board games there, and some of the card and dice games over on the side, including Munchkin is keeping up. Now, Munchkin being able to keep up with the card and dice games after, I think they're on 10 years of Munchkin now, gives me hope for that Munchkin trading card game. But that all being said, that doesn't change that there's tons of this stuff in the market right now. We've got all of these cards. So I wanted to talk about some of the do's and don'ts with the cards, some of the basic things. Like, one of the things Rudy mentioned in his video is Force of Will. These have beautiful cardstock. If you guys have never tried the cardstock for Force of Will, it feels so amazing. It's one of the first things I noticed when I popped a pack. But it also, I wouldn't say, is the best cardstock. And let me show you a little video. I'm going to have some people blow my comments up for this because I'm going to ruin some cards here, they're going to say. But let me show you a little video. Everybody's complaining about Magic cardstock. And don't get me wrong, you can feel it. It's gotten flimsier. Sometimes they start to arc. I already have Modern Masters cards. In fact, let me show you. This is a Modern Masters card just pulled. It's already kind of getting that curve in it. You see that? I have barely touched this card. It was pulled today. But I'm not worried about that because there's some classic Magic tests you could do to test if cards are real. So I'm going to take this card side by side, and oh yeah, I'm bending it, side to side until they touch. Oh, but what? There's no bends in that card. Look at that. That is a classic way to tell if a Magic card is a real card, you can bend it side to side without creasing the card. That is a really cool thing. You can do it with a lot of cards. Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes their card stock, dropping cards. Sometimes their card stock can't do it, but most of them touch the edges, you fold it back down, and you're fine. The card might have it shouldn't have any nicks, honestly. It really shouldn't if it's a real true card. Final Fantasy, same thing. And Final Fantasy has a nice thick card stock. I love Final Fantasy cards. Look, even on that nice black back, you can't see a crease there. So yes, you can bend these side to side, no issue. I mean, they have a little curve to them now, but those can bend out. You actually can readjust that bend of the curve there pretty nicely. Final Fantasy is actually, if I were to call out my favorite card stock right now, it is Final Fantasy. And I will get to the Force of Will one in a second, which used to be my favorite. Now, I'm not going to try to bend the Munchkin one. I messed around with this earlier. It does the bend, but it can leave a mini crease. Let's see if this one did it. You can almost see, there's just like the bareliest of a line that can be seen. And Munchkins on their first thing, their card stock, I'm not too worried about. It is nice and thick and feels good. Let's do the same here over to the final, or to the Dragon Ball Super. Same thing. No bends. Even on the black, you don't see bends. It's a really good sign of a card game. Now, Pokemon, if you don't have hollows, you can do it. Hollows, you can end up ruining the hollow if you try this trick with them. Now, I am going to ruin this next one, I'm pretty sure, because Force of Will has never been able to pull this test off completely. You touch edge to edge, but now, look at the back here. Can we see it on there? This one actually wasn't that bad, but you can kind of see there is permanent damage in the creasing. On the front end especially. I don't know if you got... yep, look at that. You bend a Force of Will card edge to edge. Yes, it has that thick cardstock, but if you bend it edge to edge, you're going to get a crease in there. All the other cards, you can refold them out and you won't have that issue. It's actually kind of a trick they teach you in collectible shops that you can check old Magic cards. People who use Magic cards and get the stock wrong, you can see a crease in there, and that's one of the ways you can check for proxies and fakes. Force of Will, sadly, has never passed that bend test. While I love the quality, you feel these cards, it's how a card should feel. But it worries me that if somebody pile shuffles my deck wrong, I'm going to get a crease in there. Now, I know I'm probably going to get some people blowing up my comments. I've already had people in comments tell me how I should shuffle my decks. And yes, I know not to bend these cards. Look at these cards. These are all junk cards. It's nothing really worth too much. Well, actually, that was kind of a promo card. We'll go over those later. But I have two of them, so I can do that. I just wanted to show you guys the cardstock thing, because the cardstock was brought up for Force Will, and while I've always loved the cardstock, I will note that it's always had a little bit of a bend problem, and you can get these bends in there just from going edge to edge, which I don't like seeing in any card game. But the bending isn't really the point of this video. It's just something I thought I could show off to talk about cardstock. Yes, Magic's cardstock has gone down in quality. I literally yelled at them at GAMA about this. I brought it up, and all they said is they're always looking to fix cardstock. And if any player has an issue with cardstock, they can mail their card into GAMA or into Wizards of the Coast, and WotC will replace it. That was their official response. I think their cardstock could be better. I've felt some English cards that come from the printers in Europe, and those feel like how I want Magic cards to feel. But if I had to give you guys one card that I think the cardstock is great on, now, don't get me wrong, DBS, really good, but it is not the amazing Final Fantasy cardstock. The cardstock on Final Fantasy games is phenomenal, and I wish more stores would buy into this. Final Fantasy has awesome returns on box openings also. The foils on Final Fantasy always make the box openings worth it to me. But that's a whole other video. Let's just chat for a moment longer about collectible card games in this market, and the fact that I don't want to see these games turn into what comics from the 90s turned into. Some of you guys have already brought up things like Marvel cards from the 90s. Heck, even sports cards from the 90s. Nobody wants your rookie Jordan. Yes, some of them are actually worth something, but most are worth nothing. Most of the 90s sports cards were so overly produced, like every collectible in the 90s, that they're worth nothing. And I fear that we might be seeing something like that in the collectible card market. But like Rudy said in his video, we are seeing some changes. We're seeing the wind start to shift. We are seeing Pokemon here. Let me talk about what I learned from them. Ultra Prism, not officially out of print. They wouldn't give me a word one way or another. We all know the distributor's out. You can't get any more if you wanted to. But according to the Pokemon people, that might be back in print. They really would not give me a full answer, which to me says they're watching their print runs. Yes, they might fix it and they might reprint it in 6 months, but they're going to watch their print runs on this. They're going to make sure that it's something people want, and when it comes back, they're going to make sure it's going to sell. You won't see it reprinted unless they know it's going to sell. Final Fantasy had some of these issues too. I'm just going to bring that up real quick. There had been a little issues with the distribution of that, but Final Fantasy's been getting better, and I think if more stores would get into it, it wouldn't have quite the problems, but that, again, is a bit of another video. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has had a lot of issues in the last year, and they spent a lot of time trying to prop their new product. Don't get me wrong, Legendary Collection Kaiba recently, very good product. However, you also had so many products that have fallen short, and they're trying in this next year to make up for it. You see this left and right. We've talked about with Magic. That is, I use this card to bend just in case there was a problem, because Trisk. Why was Trisk in Modern Masters? Why was Tree of Redemption in Modern Masters? I get it's a draft set. I get those two play together, but why? That all being said, Force of Will, and my bent card there, I'm really glad to see they're reducing the print runs. Talking about Trisk there, they are reducing the print runs on Hour of Devastation's already out. I asked them about that at GAMA. It was confirmed. Basically, all they had to say about it is sometimes you decide you don't have enough time to print another run. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing, and they are all trying to watch themselves. They can't lose out. These companies, I mean, yes, Wizards has other stuff going for it with Hasbro. Konami, they've got other stuff going for it. They make gambling machines, literally. But the rest of these, Pokemon, they have other stuff, but they want to keep the TCG going. All these companies want their TCGs to work. And you got new companies getting into the TCG market like Munchkin, which I think is a great idea for them. They have been dominating the board game market for so long. But all of these look like a bit of a collectible bubble to me. And if I were all of you out there, I would watch it. I would watch for the people doing short print runs. I'd watch for the people doing print to order. That is a new concept we should all be talking about more and more. Print to order. The only game that even talks about first edition cards anymore is Yu-Gi-Oh! And you see it hidden down here, first edition. It's not even important in Yu-Gi-Oh! Anymore. Nobody cares if it's a first edition card. But man, I tell you, print to order cards, it might be the answer. The way we do comics, where the second printing of a comic has a different cover. You know it's different, and it's worth less. We've seen comics spiking crazy here recently. You have comics that are going for $20 in days after they release at $3.99. There's a thinner pie these days. There's a lot of allocation issues, and there's more LGSs popping up. And if we don't want this to turn into the 90s, we need to really watch what we're doing. And I think if we go print to order, and imagine, step into an imaginary world with me. What if Magic went print to order for a set? Dominaria, imagine it was print to order. Only what the distributors order would be printed the first time around. And then on the second set, they still printed it when there was a second printing run after the first print completely sold out. But you got something like maybe a mark that said second printing. More important, maybe you could change the art. I know that would be really expensive for them, but if you literally changed the art right here in every one of those pictures, and the first print had a different art from every other print run, you would sell the first print out. You would guarantee that the print to order system, at least that's my opinion. I've seen it work for comics. I think it could work for cards. I know it would be expensive to change the art like that, and you can't just go Yu-Gi and remove the first edition, because everything's first edition in Yu-Gi until you get to the reprint set, the special edition packs, I believe is what they call them now. And it just doesn't matter. And, like, I don't expect cards to go down in value. Old Magic cards, Black Lotuses, your Power 9, they're never going to drop in value. It's the current stuff that's going to get hit. Wizards could go out of business today, and people will still pay high money for all of those old cards. It's like comics. Old school comics are worth a lot. Comics from the 70s are starting to be worth a lot. Even comics from the 80s, as things like Iron Fist and Power Man are coming out. Comics from the 90s, unless you had a prominent hero that was released in that issue, it's worth nothing. And I don't know how to explain to you better that these cards, all of these cards, even the rare ones that you guys are sitting on that you think are worth $100 plus right now, are going to be worth nothing if we don't get something worked out here. We, as collectors, have to watch this. We can't inflate the market, and as store owners, as LGSs, all of us out there that are the people acting in this market, buying and selling specifically, we need to be watching our numbers. Don't order thousands of a bad set. I actually really like the way Ultra Prism was handled. I think that Ultra Prism might be one of the ways to do it. I think Force of Will might be onto something. Whether it's too late for them or not, though, I don't know. Well, I just wanted to say all of this today. Kind of get it all out there, do a little bit of a response video, mention some of the stuff I learned at GAMA. I wanted to bring up my conversation with the Force of Will CEO because it really did strike me. And I wanted to mention all this to you. You guys are hearing some awesome music in the background from Alvis Music. You can check out ALBVS Music on YouTube. You can also check me out around the web at Saccora on Facebook and Twitter, at Pop Culture Theory on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Or, of course, you can check me out on Patreon at patreon.com/Saccora. If you throw me $1 a month on there, I can do some more videos like this, upgrade my equipment so you don't see the annoying logos in the corner, all those kind of things. As far as the collectibles market, everybody, I don't necessarily think you should get out of it. I think there's a lot to be said for staying in the collectibles market right now, and a lot of it is just because we love the games. You know, collectibles are there because people love what they're doing, and I love the games. I hope you all love them too, and that's why we stay in this market. As for, Rudy at Alpha Investments, this was a little bit of a response video to him. I don't know if you were able to glean anything off of this or if you even watched it, but this is, some opinions that I'm seeing. You asked for opinions from around the U.S. and from different areas, and this is what I'm seeing up in my metro area. This is what I got from my time at GAMA. I'm hearing the same things that you're hearing from your people. I'm hearing the same thing from my distributors, and I think that all the card companies, they are talking. They know something's going on, and they know that there needs to be a change. Thank you all. I am Saccora with Pop Culture Theory, and I will catch you all next time.